excited for this one. I know that we've had a lot of customers wanting this, and before I hand the baton over to Byron, who's going to be demonstrating for us, I just wanted to let you guys know, if you haven't been to our website lately, we have a lot of good information up there, not to mention my blog posts, which try to give you some tech tips here and there, and Evan's blog posts as well. We've got our new GainSeeker platform library up there, and we're adding content all the time, as well as our help file. So if you haven't gone to our website, take a look at it. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and make Byron our presenter so he can show us all this good stuff.
All right, thanks, Jen.
You're welcome.
Let me share out my screen here.
Perfect.
Okay. So today I want to talk about some of the new features in version 8.9 to be released very soon. That was air quotes there. And the code was frozen a few weeks ago, and we're just finishing up some of the documentation now. So in talking with Jen, one of the first topics I want to talk about is what we call dynamic desktops. And she said that's a really important feature, as she recalled a training class she had held with a team from a consumer products company. And in her words from this session's sign-up email, she said, these folks raised a complaint that they run so many products and they change products constantly. They told her that it made it really hard to draw charts for today's data. When she showed them the restrict list feature, which lists only today's products, they thought they had died and went to heaven. Dynamic desktops is the new restrict list button on steroids. And Jen went on to say, before dynamic desktops, you needed to create a desktop for each and every product family you run. And that's a lot of work if you have a high-mix, high-volume plant. With dynamic desktops, you need only one desktop for each collection of charts you want to see, regardless of how many parts or part families you run. It's a huge time saver. All right, so let's take a look at this kind of common scenario. We'll go into GS charts and SPC charts, and hey, look at this new feature. I can search by standard variables or descriptions. I know the part that's running today has gap as part of it, the description, and I see this headlight feature. I know it also does flush and headlight there as well, so I'm going to switch back to part number, and I see that headlight will catch both the gap and flush characteristics. So I'm going to put headlight in there. And I know this part ran last week, and I want to examine the data for it, so I'm going to hit Select All. And then if I go to the Settings tab and pick Filter, Machine 1400, because that's the machine it was running on, I can go ahead and hit the OK button. Now it's going to go out and pull in all that data. And once all the charts are up, I'll go ahead and tile that window, and I can see there that one of the chart borders is red, the rest are green, so we must have had a real-time failure on that particular one. So at this point, it's easy enough to create a desktop for this. You can go into Desktop, the Desktop menu, and save your desktop. But what happens when I want to see the data tomorrow and a different part is running? I need to run through all of this again or create a separate desktop for a different part number. And if I'm doing this for multiple machines, I have to update all of the desktops for all the machines that are running. Soon you'll have a huge list of desktops, or you'll spend a lot of time editing desktops. So how do we get around that? The answer, as Jen mentioned, is dynamic desktops.
Yay!
All right. So if we go into the desktop menu and select Create Dynamic Desktop, first thing I want to do is I'm going to do SPC, and we're just a regular retrieval, but I want the charts to be tiled when they're done. And I'm going to pick a filter Machine 1400, just like I did before. And I can enter in that I want the headlight parts, and I can even see the list that it's going to find based on my filter and everything else. So at this point, I can hit OK, and I just want control charts, so I'll hit OK again. And at this point, I could open without saving, or I can save and give it a name, so let's call it Tech Tips Live, and hit OK. And it asks me first time when I'm creating if I actually want to open the desktop. Now I'll say yes. So when the retrievals have all finished, the screen will look similar to my previous brute force method to create the charts. But now I only need one desktop running because it'll pick up whatever the current parts are that met my filter and that were running that day.
And your filter was that particular machine or line.
Yep.
So if we were concerned with only weights on one machine, we could put in weights, put in the filter for that machine, and get something different today, get something different tomorrow. Correct. Same desktop.
Yep, same desktop.
Perfect.
Yep. So I'm going to go ahead and close these. And if I go into the Open Desktop dialog, you can see there's a new column off on the right. It says static, which are the kind of old school desktops, and here's a dynamic desktop, that TTL one that I just created. And I can hit open, and ta-da, it recreates it for us.
Brian, those colors?
Uh-huh.
I've not seen that before.
Well, thanks for mentioning that, Jen. For example, this particular chart here, I know that it had a real-time failure. So if I go into the settings dialog, and if I search for border, because my real-time failure border is set, you can see that I have records to include 1. That means it's just looking at the last data record for each of these parts, and it's coloring the border of the chart based on that last data record, and it's set to the highest priority. So what I'm going to do is change it to 25. So it's going to look at the last 25 data records now. Okay. And you can either color the border around the chart either with the highest priority failure within there or the most recent failure that happened. If you remember back in sysadmin, you can assign different colors to different failures, like a spec failure versus a control limit failure, and you can assign priorities to those, where maybe, again, spec would be your highest priority and control limit would be next and trends would be after that. So if I change this to include the last 25 records with highest priority, it flips to red, and if I maximize that particular chart, you can see I had a failure, not the last data point, which is what I originally had it set for, but a few back. And if I exclude that particular point from stats and charts, then it should go back to green, which it did, because I didn't have any failures in that particular chart. So yeah, that's a slick new feature where you can put borders around your charts based on the real-time failure.
Quick, easy way without really looking at the chart to grab your attention, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Sweet.
All right. So another enhancement that's somewhat related to this, I know in the past when I was going through the brute force method of looking at the data, when you're in building a filter, let's say you want to build a filter for all the machines on line 1. So I'm going to make a new filter called line 1, and I'm going to pick machine equals. Now at this point I could type in all the machine numbers and build that, but there's this new build multi-row filter, and if I actually want to go out to the database and see what all the values are out in the database, there's all my values, but I'm just going to use from the predefined list, and I know that these 3 values, these 3 machines are on line 1. So when I hit OK, it just builds that filter for me. So there you are with your machine equals your 3 values. So it's just another time saver if you are doing filters and you're building the complex ones with a lot of rows. It'll save you some time. All right, switching gears a little bit, let's hop into the dashboards.
Sounds good.
Often it'd be useful to be able to summarize info in a grids column without having to write a dynamic report. Oops, should have got rid of that earlier. Now it ruined my surprise. Okay.
Sorry.
So there's a new property for a grid. If we go into table settings, there's this new property called summary. And you can see here that I picked average, max, min, and the range. So what happens when I look at this dashboard, open it up, there you see at the bottom of that column, it shows you the average mean for each of those features, the maximum and minimum means, and then the range of the means. So that'll save you having to build a dynamic report if you want to see some basic summary information. You can just have it show up at the bottom of the grid. Now, wouldn't it be nice to be able to do something like we did for dynamic desktops retrievals for a dashboard retrieval? And you say,
yes, absolutely.
all right, yes, it would. All right, so if we go into our dashboard, add dial gauge, when I set up the retrieval for this dial gauge, I can pick, in this case, most recent data that passes this filter. Again, my machine 1400. And instead of just doing a standard retrieval like we typically do, we're going to do a most recent data. And when we look at this, it's going to actually find the 01A gap reading. If you see the means, those match up. And so what it did, it went out and found the most recent data that matched that machine, and it found that particular characteristic. In this case, you don't need to specify a specific standard. The system will determine it for you. So the standard for this dial gauge just comes from the most recent data for that machine. And you might want to include a characteristic to look for in the filter. If we go back into design mode and look at that retrieval and edit it, here in the filter name, I could add something like part number contains flush instead of gap. And then when we go ahead and look at this and run it, we'll see that it changed to a different data set. And I could display the part number on there as well. But the idea is that whatever passes the filter, the most recent data that passes that filter, will pick up that standard and show you that information.
So no more creating tons and tons of dial gauges for each part family.
Right. So you could have what's running on a particular machine or a particular line or department or whatever you want to filter by, and have it automatically fill that in for you.
Just the thing to know is if you're running 2 different parts in one day, it's picking the latest,
the most recent
yep. one.
Yep.
That's good to know.
All right.
And just a reminder for everyone, we do have time set aside for Q&A. And I do have one question that's already come in. Thank you very much. We'll get to that one in just a second. And then I think, did you have a couple other things you wanted to mention?
Yeah, I had a
quickly?
couple other things in 8.9. In the inspection editor, for those of you that edit Python scripts, there are a couple new features in here that might make you happy. First of all, you can now compare different versions of scripts. So if I pick this particular script and then click on this button with the 2 arrows to do a comparison, and I pick an older script that's similar, in this case, up pops a free download utility called WinMerge, which will actually show you the 2 files, the 2 scripts side by side, and show you what's different. You can see in the file on the left, I added a constant for pi, and then replaced the hard-coded values in the file on the right with the constant on the left. So it's an easy way for you to do some version control and to see what's changed in some scripts if you're updating scripts and keeping backup copies of the original ones.
And I've already got somebody really excited that we got that feature. And Byron, the utility that you're using now, you said this is like a third party and it's free?
Right, it's a free download. It's called WinMerge. And if you don't have anything downloaded, we'll actually use the built-in DOS command, the FC command, which is a file comparison, and it'll pop up like a DOS window and show you the differences between the two files. It's not as neat and as interactive as this WinMerge, but it does the job. It'll show you what's different.
Is that something that we could possibly place on our FTP site, or at
The
least have,
WinMerge?
yeah, or at least have information, put information where they can get that?
Yeah, maybe we can send
If you
that.
guys are interested, email me, and we'll find a way for you guys to download it.
Yeah, it's a free download. It's pretty nice utility.
I like it, and I'm kind of sorry I'm not doing a lot of coding anymore. Kind of sorry, but not really sorry.
And along with that, there's a couple of new commands I just want to highlight. There's a file Excel to PDF, where if you've created an Excel file, you can feed the file name in and the PDF you want created. With the settings, you can specify landscape or portrait, and whether you want to write out all your sheets or not. And then the same thing if you have some HTML and you want to write that out to PDF, you can do that as well. So now you can create PDFs directly from within GainSeeker.
Wow, we just got pretty technical.
Mm-hmm.
You guys get bonus points for attending this webinar. I didn't even know that. That's pretty cool.
And so you don't have to download the email scripts from the library anymore. We built in the new email command right into the system that uses the same technology as like when you're emailing charts. So you've got a full set of commands there. When you're doing Python scripts, if you want to email info out to people, you can do that. All right, should we hop into some questions?
Yeah, and like I said, I've got one for you. And again, people, if you have questions on this topic, or I'll even extend it to maybe 8-9, or just general questions you have, please feel free to hit that Q&A and make sure that you're sending the question to the panel. And this question came right at the very beginning of the webinar, so I'm assuming, so let me know if I'm wrong, that it was talking about the dynamic desktops. And the question was, could we use description rather than part number? And I'm guessing it's for that extra filter.
Right. So currently you can restrict the list with just the part number.
Is description part that we could do in the filter itself?
That's what I'm looking at. I don't think so, because typically we filter on the data itself, and the description isn't in here. That's something we'll have to look at adding as well. You know, maybe like we did in the search for the actual parts off the SPC button. If on this screen here, if we let them do the description or standard variables, because some people will set, you know, standard variables and then want to pull out based on the standard variable as well what type of part it is, or maybe a family of parts, that sort of thing. So we can look at adding that for version 9.1. That's a good idea.
There you go. We got our first enhancement request already. So hopefully that does answer your question at this time, and hopefully we have a better answer for what you said, 8.9.
9.1 will be the next
9.1?
8.9's for the one just coming out, yeah.
Awesome. Do we have any other questions? I see one come up. Give me just a second.
Well, just to show you, while you're waiting for that question to come in, the PDF commands and the HTML and all that, I thought it would be fun to show you what that looks like. So here's one case where you might use that info. When the user clicks the submit button, you could actually generate the PDF based on what they typed in their data entry session. Here I just created a button so we could demo, you know, HTML. So there I created just a simple table in HTML or Excel. There I wrote it out to Excel, and then PDF I chose HTML.
Look at that.
But there it generated the HTML and then pushed it out to a PDF file. So you can generate PDFs based on a data entry session.
Nice.
All right, so here it looks like we have another question. If we gather data individually, maybe 8 samples 3 times a day, can we create a report that shows only the mean by day for a week? So we've got 8 samples 3 times a day, and we want to show the mean, a daily mean for a week, for 7 days. I think we actually did something like that. Did we do that in the last with the external, or maybe in our original Tech Tips Live with our external data, where we summed up the data points for a day and then plotted those daily means over a week period. I think there might actually be something in the script library that handles that. Should we go take a peek at that?
So Evan was thinking, you know, it's kind of funny because I just wrote a Tech Tips blog on the multiple date range feature, and I wonder if something like that could be used.
Oh.
Or maybe even a performance, and instead of showing CPK up top, you could show the mean and have it generate daily for the 5 days.
Okay.
That might be a way too.
That might be a way to do it too. All right.
But I want to see Byron's.
Well, let's go. Yeah, I need to be in charts and reports here, and then we'll go up to the library. So I'm trying to remember if we published that up there. Summing SPC data for different time periods, loops through all the data points for retrieval and sums them up. You can choose week, month, quarter, custom time periods. So
that might be
that
something.
That might actually already be doing it for us. I'd say the person that asked the question, try downloading that, plug in your data set, and
see how we do.
See how we do.
And I do have another question for you too. When you're done, I'm not trying to rush you here.
So yeah, here you can do a quarterly, monthly, weekly, custom, and we could probably add daily to that easy enough. Looks at a time period, runs through the data. Wow, there's a lot of code here. There must have been David that wrote that one. He's pretty good with Python.
Are you ready for your
Anyway, yeah, let's go ahead with the next one.
So for dynamic desktops, if we select a performance chart, is it possible to have it with trace grouping?
Trace grouping with performance chart.
I know that's kind of throwing you out there.
Throwing
you to the wolves, Byron.
I don't know if, let's see, trying to think what part number we would have some good traceability with.
If you're in tour, maybe that, is it like D or E, 34 KB length?
Some of these here, D-34s. Okay.
Length, and yeah, we have it for the January, February 2012.
Right, so it's D-34. And I don't know, do we want to filter on anything? But we really just want to look at
see if we can.
Performance charts, right?
Yeah.
So performance charts, and trying to think what our grouping would be there. Well, let's get those up first. So here we have a bunch of performance charts. Let's pick one here. And then the question is, can we do...
Possible to have it with trace grouping, traceability grouping.
So group by...
And we'd probably be under performance charts.
Oh, yeah, okay. I'm not that familiar with performance charts. Value display on the chart is the mean, but we're actually talking about splitting it up. Oh, data group by, right now it's doing it by anchor point, so we'd want to do it by traceability is all. I think I'm making this too hard. So we could do the retrieval group by, probably could have done that back on the original screen. Group by, same machine. And there we have our two machines. So maybe back here, I think we have access to that. The D34. And then here, we could group by, why am I not seeing it? Maybe it's not on the screen. Maybe you have to do it after the fact. But once we've done that, we can save it as a desktop and be good to go. So, all right.
And I do have one more question, and I even think I might know the answer.
Well, go for it.
No, definitely not, because in case I'm wrong, everybody's going to know. If you open 5 to 10 control charts, can you change all of them at once to group by traceability?
No, you can't do it after the fact. You could go back into the initial retrieval. I don't think you can after the fact. You can go back into the initial retrieval, change the grouping there.
I thought there was another layer. I thought Dale just showed me.
To change
something, and it affected all the charts.
All the charts within a chart family. So there's this idea of a chart family, like if you have a control chart and a histogram and a performance chart all based on the same data set, if you change that grouping in one of those charts that are all part of that family, then it will change in all of them.
Okay, that's
but if there are 10 different charts, each with its own retrieval and own data set,
open them at different times.
Right, you'd have to change each one individually, or go back to that initial screen and set the grouping there, and then when you create them and it goes through, it'll create them that way to begin with.
Okay.
Yeah.
But if you created them all at once with the same.
Yeah, you can do it up front.
Okay.
And after the fact, you can, any changes you make to a chart within a chart family apply to all the other charts within that family.
I bet you that's what I was thinking of. Thanks.
Okay.
See, I'm even learning here.
I'll do a little bit of follow-up on that performance chart and the grouping, make sure we can do that. Okay?
Awesome. We do have a couple minutes left. I do want to thank each and every person that signed on to take time out of your busy day. I hope it's been very helpful. Again, if you're interested in that free download, email me, jen@hertzler.com. Be happy to research that and get a link for you guys. Again, any other questions, comments? I'm not doing a survey at the end of this, so if you guys have any suggestions that you'd like to see for the tech tips, chat with me, send them an email, call me. I'm pretty available. They don't let me take vacation anymore, so I'll be here. I took one long one, and then that's it. So, again, unless there's other questions, I want to thank everybody for being with us today. Byron, anything?
No. Good to go.
I think we're good. All right, and look, at exactly 2:30. That's how I like it. Start on time, stop on time. All right, again, thank you, everybody. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.